Today, our guest on the show is a New York City legend, Louise Phillips Forbes, with the Louise Phillips Forbes team with Brown Harris Stevens in New York City. Let me tell you more about Louise. For over 3 decades, Louise Phillips Forbes has been an industry leader in New York's residential real estate market, with her career sales exceeding, dramatic pause, 5.5 billion. End of dramatic pause. She is considered one of the elite power brokers in Manhattan. She really is a true superstar. Louise has been named Residential Agent of the Year by REBNY, which is the Real Estate Board of New York, for her consistent achievements and leadership within the industry. She's a multi-time winner of Halstead's Real Estate, which is now Brown Harris Stevens, Esteemed Broker of the Year Award. Louise has also been acknowledged many times as the #1 listing broker company-wide, and currently leads one of the firm's top sales teams. She has developed a significant following among developers, buyers, and sellers throughout Manhattan, from the Upper West Side and Upper East Side to the West Village, Tribeca, Wall Street, really everywhere, Manhattan and the boroughs. Louise proudly serves prominent New Yorkers. Please follow her on Instagram, which is Louise Phillips Forbes Team. I will have a link to that in the show notes, and also visit her website, which is louisephillipsforbes.com. And we will also have a link to that as well. Louise, so happy to have you.
Thank you. I'm just going to add to that lovely intro that there's also Wheezy _says, and that's WEZE _SEZ, if you really want to get a little essence of Wheezy.
Should I call you Wheezy as opposed to Louise?
You know what? I met my husband on a blind date, and I was like, oh, all my friends call me. My husband's very elegant, and he certainly elevates me. And I was like, all my friends call me Wheezy. And he was like, turning the menu, going, I will never call you Wheezy.
Is he not a fan of the Jeffersons, or?
I don't know. But, I'm from Nashville, Tennessee, and that's just what everybody called me growing up. So
I love that you still have a little tiny bit of that Nashville accent, which I just think is one of the best accents in our country. I love the Nashville accent.
Well,
awesome.
when I'm negotiating, particularly, it's something that I don't intentionally do it, but when I'm a little nervous, I go home. We go home. I go
Yes.
home in my accent, and so yes. Wait till I spend about 10 days in Nashville, and then I'm like, y'all, it's Wheezy. Yep. What y'all doing?
Oh, I love Nashville so much. Everybody loves Nashville. It's pretty much a universally beloved city. It's like Charleston is kind of that way. Austin. Yep. There's a few cities that you'd be hard pressed to find somebody that goes, oh, Nashville, yuck. It's like everybody loves it.
Amen.
But anyway, let's get to your origin story. Our audience always loves to hear. I know you've been in this business for 30 plus years, but why did you get started, and how did you get started in real estate?
Well, I always say that I kind of fell off the boat from Nashville to New York City. I came here really seeking the Broadway lights. I was a dancer, and I miss it. I did some off-Broadway things, but really, with everybody who is in real estate, we all have multiple chapters in our life. I would say the new generation is being educated to be in real estate, but my journey was through the back door, which was through coming here and ending up in New York. And literally, I was bartending, and somebody was like, "You would be so great in real estate." And I went. I took the card. I met her friend. And he was like, you got a job. And I called my brother, and I was like, I got a job. And he was like, that's commission only. And I was like, oh, no. And for all the new brokers out there, I just want to say, keep coming back, because I literally made $8,400 my first year. And I lived on $30 a week. I came to New York with $800 in my pocket. And almost $6 billion later, I am so in the right place. I have a degree in special education and elementary education, and I had a scholarship to dance for 2 dance companies. And how real estate fills all those holes, I have no idea. But it's not the business of brick and mortar. It's really the business of people. And that is what blows my skirt up. you know?
That is, by the way, just the blows my skirt up expression is adorable, and I love that. I love that. But you're right, and it is a relationship, of course, business. It's an interpersonal business, and brick and mortar. Uh, Even in real estate offices aren't that packed anymore, unless there's teams that are working and need to sort of have that space. But
Sure.
so many people are moving away from the brick and mortar offices. Although I still, there's obviously still tremendous value in that. But I would love to learn a little bit about, you've been around 34 years. I want to dive into sort of just a more challenging topic. Because of where we currently are, and it's something that everybody's probably experiencing some version of, which is it's a down market. It just is. It's where we are, and the interest rates are up. Of course, inventory is down. Again, I know Manhattan is kind of its own ecosystem there that maybe sometimes a little bit outside of what the rest of the country is experiencing. But I would always love to hear from huge producers like you and your team. How are you keeping everyone motivated, work moving forward? What is your team focused on right now? Because of course you're still working.
Right, of course. I mean, listen, I didn't have a Rolodex. For all the young listeners, that was a thing that we held all of our contacts in. Now we have our phones. But I had no contacts. All my friends were like starving artists. And um I would just say that I was not comfortable with the commission model, because that meant that I had to be worthy. I needed to earn my keep.
Yeah.
And something clicked in me, which is a philosophy in down markets and up markets, it doesn't matter. That I realized that if I looked at myself not as a salesperson, but an educator, I felt much more comfortable. And if I operated from being of service at all times, what goes around comes around. So these are those markets that, operating by being of service to my competitor and sharing my knowledge and collaborating and doing more than I need to do, comes back 18-fold. So
Wow.
that is one of the greatest wisdoms that I've learned through trial and error, honestly. And there'll be people that will, you give them an inch and they take a mile, and then when you really need them, they're not there. But for the most part, it is appreciated, and honestly, buyers and sellers come and go, but we have
Yeah.
each other for decades, and the
Yeah.
richness that that gives you in wisdom and experience. And I love it when I'm going to lose a piece of business. Hopefully, I'm losing to somebody I respect.
Yeah, and there's enough business to sort of go around, right? And you don't win every deal, of course, as you have been in this business a long time. You win a lot of them, obviously, but it is always, I always say it's always a good idea to play nice in the sandbox, especially because it is, at least for now, it's called a cooperative commission. We're supposed to be cooperative.
Yes,
And
yes.
how important is the relationships you've built with other realtors over your career?
Massive, massive. I mean, every time I do, so you're talking about, like, you're asking me, it's a difficult market. So what's my advice? What are we doing? We are
Yeah.
out there every day. I I am very data driven. I always say I'm not the smartest pencil in the bucket, but I get so much accolades for effort, energy, consistency. I never give up. And I think these are the markets where your knowledge and data, like, who can figure out what anything is worth since COVID, right?
Right.
Because there's no cycle, right? And so I every time I get a pitch, which we probably average 5 to 7 a week, if not more,
Wow.
I talk to 50. I'm not saying 50 brokers just for that analysis. What's happening? Do you have any offers? When you drop the price, did it make a difference? Then I'm not only giving my owners a bunch of numbers, I'm telling the story to the texture. The broker wanted to list this at $2 million, but the owner asked to put it on for 3 weeks at 2.5. Well, 8 weeks later, they just dropped it to 199, and the market's different today. So that's telling the story. So I don't have to pressure anybody. We're partnering together. It's like, hey, I can't make up the market. So that kind of collaboration is how I approach everything, whether it's a buyer, a broker I'm interviewing, to an agent to come and work on our team. Like, who are you? And you demonstrate that by the data points that you share them.
Yeah, so it's important to know the market and to study the market on a daily basis, which I suspect most agents probably could upgrade their amount of time they spend learning the market on a daily basis, and in addition to the prospecting and working with their existing clients and all of the things you need to do to keep the business running, is this idea of and collaboration, learning from other agents, is so important. And I wanted to go back to something you had said about educating, because you are an educator. That was your training,
Right.
that and in special needs, which of course is requires an even really a more sophisticated skill set to be able to address the needs of people with developmental disabilities and those type of challenges. And it probably, I would assume, your level of patience that you have in communicating with clients and really educating them is probably served you extraordinarily well, because again, as realtors, we oftentimes can forget how challenging, emotionally a purchase or a sale can be for the client. It's easy for us to sort of say, oh, it's all going to work out, but it may not feel that way to the client in real time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I would also say that I learned a long time ago for myself, because I used to be on the same roller coaster as them when we didn't get the deals. I was so disappointed. I also felt it was somehow or another my fault. And what I have come to look at everything, and this is part of me having an executive coach and me learning that, like, sometimes your skill is not necessarily the most important thing if your will is there.
Yeah.
And it's also how you perceive it. Like, listen, have faith in the process. That was not the right house for us, and we have to say, what can we have learned from that? What would I have done differently? Should we have given that extra 20 grand that we really wanted to wait? Maybe we could have gotten their attention. But I also don't dwell on it, because usually we learn a lot about ourselves, and most of all they learn about themselves and their partnerships, their relationships, of of who's going to really make the final decisions, and when do you let go of the numbers and you focus on the heart of it. Because that, to me, is why I really am so fulfilled, because what I do is not a transaction. It's purposeful. I built the rest of my life around my home. To be a part of that is such a privilege.
Yeah, it really is. I think we couldn't ever over focus on the interpersonal importance of being in this business. You're legitimately, working with somebody who maybe it's their largest financial purchase of their life, or certainly one of the larger financial purchases in really probably anyone's life. But more than that, it's that emotional connection we all have to our abode, to our residence. We feel a certain way about it. It's important. It defines us in a lot of ways. I also want to talk about aesthetics just briefly, because I think we never talk about this on the show. And of course, aesthetics are just one little minor portion of anyone's business. But I love the fact that you have a look, you have a style very much unto you that is very much you. And it's very cool. And you are a creative person, you are a dancer.
Oh,
So you have this really cool way of expressing yourself physically. So I would just love to hear a little bit about how you're able to do that in real estate. I love that.
I love that. Well, talking about my look, I always, when I teach real estate classes or whatever I'm working on in collaboration with some of the real estate board or our courses for continuing education. I literally tell the story about when I showed up my first day in real estate. Okay, just everybody close your eyes. I usually say, okay, everybody, 400 kids in the audience, and I'm like, close your eyes. All right, imagine a unitard with a prairie skirt, green cowboy boots, with a hole in my left one, and shoulder pads. I
Sure.
just I just want you to have the visual. And honestly, I had never been in an office. I was a dancer. I have a degree in special education. I didn't even I did Tony Roberts, creative visual Robbins. I listened to his I learned how to creatively visualize who I wanted to be.
Yeah.
I was in my 20s and I just wasn't I was pretty cash. I mean, as you see, I haven't changed that much, but I do have a look because I remember when my sister, I'd go home and my sister was a school teacher and she married her college sweetheart and she's amazing, but we are like yin and yang. And she would like, let's go shopping. And I would end up with all these outfits that my sister would wear. And I was like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? So I would say just embrace who you are today and who you become every day, because I don't know. I mean, I'm a lot for a lot of people. So, I mean, sometimes I've left and the wives would say like, I'm going to go next time. My husband, you're really high energy for my husband. So,
But I think what comes across for you in your sort of your energy and your presence is two things that come to mind for me. Authenticity is absolutely first
mm,
and foremost. I believe you. I believe that you are the person you are portraying, which is really a skill in and of itself, because a lot of us have fear around being, uniquely ourselves, and maybe how that may be perceived. And also, so there's that authentic part, but also I think there's this sort of passion that sort of also uh, radiates from you, that is
mm,
very clear that you are doing what you want to do in your
yeah.
business. There doesn't seem to be hesitation, or I mean, you've been doing it 34 years, but it is like it seems you are as into it today as I suspect if I would have interviewed you 33 years ago. I bet it would be about the same level of passion and excitement.
Yes, other than I would be a little more timid because I will never forget the first co-op deal that I did with the attorney who I'm still working with today. And it was a $63,000 walk-up apartment. Yes, they did exist at that point. And she's like, so how's the board package coming? And I'm like, what? She's like, well, this is a co-op. And I'm like, wait
Right.
a minute, what does that mean? So I just want you to know that it's okay to not know everything. I mean, you might want to know
Yeah.
a little more than that, but but I learned a long time ago. I'm terribly dyslexic, and I only make dyslexic children. And owning those imperfections in ourselves actually for me turned out to be my secret weapon. My
Yeah.
spatial memory is like Rain Man. So I think that sometimes I have heard kids say to my own kids, "Wow, I would never tell anybody I'm dyslexic." And my son is like 9 years old at the time, was like, "Just means I learn differently. It's no big deal." But
Yes.
that vulnerability is inviting.
Yes.
It's like, "I'm gonna trust you with a little bit about me,"
Yes,
you
and
know?
I'm trusting you with information that you can use to harm me, meaning you could reject me, you could make fun of me, and most people won't do that. So it's this
Yeah,
fear we have of, like, if I reveal this about me, maybe I'll get punished for it. However, most people aren't like that. Yes, once in a while somebody will, especially kids in a playground, maybe in grade school, they'll make fun of that.
right.
But adults aren't really so much that way. And I think the courage to be vulnerable is both one of the hardest things to do. It's also one of the most rewarding, because what I've found in my life is that people don't run away generally.
And I think, listen, I have had I'm not sure if my passion came from being just so incredibly grateful. I mean, I lost my mom when I was 23. My brother died in my arms when I was 30. I had a, a boyfriend who passed away when I was 38, and my dad passed away 10 days after I met my husband on a blind date.
Oh,
And I literally think that my mother sent me my angel and took hers
mm,
back. But when you go through those kinds of obstacles in your life, you just can't sweat the small shit. And believe me, I still do. I mean, you can bleep that. Sorry.
no,
Oops.
it's okay. It's honest.
But I still do. But when you have loss, and when you have the privilege to be focused around people's homes, because what does home think for you? It's family. I left my family, right?
Yeah.
I lost a lot of my family. And so my clients, I have 7, 8 godchildren. They can't, I mean, I met my husband on a blind date from a client. So I created a new family that happened to be
Yeah.
part of what I do in business.
I am so touched by that. And you did just list a lot of challenges that you have gone through because of course you're human and people leave us. It's just part of the
But
deal.
I was going to say it also armed me to deal with
Y-
estates and
mm,
loss and
Yes.
family. And
Yes.
when I hear from my clients that they have an autistic child. Well, I am the first person to connect the dots. Let you talk to my friend who has 3 boys and her son is 3 and he's autistic and she's got. So it's like sometimes it's too much for people. But again, I just want to be of service, whether
Yeah.
we
And,
do business or not.
exactly. And also going through tremendous heartache and pain builds resiliency. And
Mhm.
that allows you to realize, wow, I can get through difficult times. I can survive them. And I can emerge a stronger person because now I know how to handle some of the really, really tough, valleys of life, as they say. Um, I would, you are very immersed in giving back. Specifically, I know that you do a lot with the local association, and maybe even statewide and national. But certainly, I know you have contributed a lot. Can we just tell all of our audience, because I do a lot of volunteering at the local level here with our association. Can we tell everybody they should get involved with their local association?
Yes, yes, and it is through giving. I mean, it sounds like I feel like I'm a minister for a minute, but in through giving, we receive so much, and you know, I I think that I'm always in awe when somebody who always is like, "Well, you're so busy." It's like, but if I'm too busy to make a difference, then I am missing my purpose. So I will say that again. If I am too busy to try to make a difference, to pause, to be present for somebody's need, then I am missing my purpose. And that's
I'm
really, if you live like that, it does pull you thin because I don't have probably enough boundaries, but I think that's the way to live. If I go to bed and I still haven't done enough, then maybe I'm going to wake up tomorrow again with a purpose to do more.
You're right, and I feel the same way. So I'm probably stretched too thin myself. However, I can always pull back on certain obligations. But what I have gained by getting involved with our local association here is I've gained a social life way more than I had
Mm.
before. I have all sorts of events to go to, but more importantly, I have all of these like-minded other real estate professionals who are committed to helping and being of service. And boy, is that a great energy to be around. And it lifts
Whether
me up.
Totally. Whether you're doing, I mean, we are in every kind of nonprofit world, the people in our world of real estate, because
Yeah.
they're not just a handful of us, there are millions of us. But, nothing is better than when you're dealing with something that's for Housing Works or for ALS. I mean, I've been to a number of my dear friend was honored and also a client honored for the American Society for breast cancer, and she was a survivor of breast cancer. And that's just been the last 3 weeks. But it is really like if we can find what fills our soul, and it's not about ourselves, it's also where, your sphere of influence becomes where you can be a part of a fabric of a community.
Yes. And I always say too, life has so many challenges and so much pain is going to come into all of our lives. It's just part of the human experience. So if you can build in sort of guaranteed wins throughout your life, they help sort of offset some of the challenging times. And being of service for me has been one of those things that it just feels too good to give up. I almost feel a bit selfish when I do it because I'm really sort of doing it for me because
Yeah.
I want to feel good, but I'm also hopefully doing some good out there in in the community. But I do it for me, sort of
Yeah. Yeah.
selfishly because I know I'm
Well,
going to feel proud of myself.
this morning, and literally I just said to my husband, because my kids, one of my sons is in college and the other one is in boarding school, and I was like, for Thanksgiving, why don't we go to the Bowery and let's serve, and then let's go look at the parade, like, like. And I listened to a guy who is a doorman who goes every Wednesday every week to serve breakfast, a meal,
Yeah, yeah,
at the Bowery. And he's like, my whole week is like set. You know what I mean? Like, it sets appreciation, gratitude, being thankful. And he said he just gets to work as a doorman. And he's like, there's nothing that's going to shake me because life is great. I have my health and I
mhm,
have a roof. And so, I'm not, everybody's journey to finding what blows their skirt up is going to be different, but make the time to do it, because it's really in giving. My mom used to say you have to give it away to keep it, and I would be like, but wait, mom, if you give it away, you don't have it.
right.
So, you know, that one,
But
that
but
finally made sense.
and what you said earlier, once you give it away, it comes back, and you said 18 fold, which again, I'm sure is just a number that you're using, but it's not so much whether that's accurate or not, but it's accurate enough to be able to say it comes back in multiples. And that is something that I have found absolutely true. There's almost a little magical element to it that I can't quite put my finger on why it comes back, but it does, it seems, most of
Yeah.
the time. Yeah.
And if it doesn't, it's that's like that story, pay it forward. It doesn't matter if it's not to that person. It's the seed that's planted, you
Yeah.
know. So, and that's the way I feel about sharing about my dyslexia, about having loss. It's like I might make somebody uncomfortable, but I might make somebody go, "Oh, I'm not alone."
Yes.
You know. I wanted to say also that kind of in our bringing back to what we do, and when you have this philosophy of being of service and being generous with your knowledge, you know, having people that I just said this last night. I was talking to somebody about meeting them for coffee because they want to do something different. And I was and I said, I think that I probably brought like 80 people into real estate by this point,
Wow.
where people are like, well, I was a sales manager, I was an architect, I was an investment banker. Do you think I could do this? Or I was an actress or whatever. And I will say that the time that I had that cup of coffee, I promise you, when when you see somebody who's going to be great at real estate, and and when you get that time and you give that time, I can't tell you how many times I've been on the other side of a negotiating table, and there are five bids, and they're like, Weeze, listen, here's the deal. You need to come up. I would love to see if I can't tell you what the other bids are, but you really you extended yourself to me. So I want to make sure I do my best for you because I know they're your personal friends, right? It's
That's
all about
worth
relationship.
I mean, what that is worth is almost not countable because it's worth so much to build those relationships, and then those relationships will possibly help, and that
And
isn't
I
the reason
wasn't
why.
expecting
Yeah,
that, just to
of
be
course.
clear. But again, it's just a seed that was planted. And I'm saying that for people when, even when I know I can't make an appointment, like I know I can't do it because my owner is definitely not going to let me in. I sometimes pick up the phone and I will say, I've just done my best. I cannot even negotiate this, but let me tell you what I can do for you. Because, and brokers are like always like, You didn't need to call me for that, Louise." But to me, doesn't that make you feel important?
Yes.
Because I do care. And sometimes I can't do anything about it. And that 17-second phone call is like 27 chips. Again, not why I did it, but but that's how I know how I feel when somebody makes that effort.
Yeah. It's important to be heard, to feel heard, to allow others to be and feel heard as well, and that is something that is so critical. I want to switch gears to talk just a little bit about teams because you run an incredibly successful team, and right now we have seen over the last, well, gosh, you've been at this much longer than I, but certainly a flight to teams or a trend towards team building in the last, I would say, 5 years or so. Certainly in the last
I
few
would
years.
say 15 years, but yes, there's some. I mean, in New York, we have some teams that have, 12, 30. I mean, the sort of, Sirhan has his own business now.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, you know, so listen, I built my team not purposefully because honestly, I don't think of myself as a business person. However, I am, which I've come to learn. But it really came out of being of service, and I can't be everywhere. And I don't like it when somebody says, she's my boss. I mean, I can't stand that. It's like, no, 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 no. We are a machine, and I'm a spoke, and you're a spoke, and we all need each other. Um, but I think that the most important thing, and I said it earlier, I spent many, many years not wanting brokers or agents who were in the business to come on my team. Number one, I'm dyslexic. I have to do things a certain way. I rarely write my emails because I would be here for 973 minutes just to get 3 paragraphs. Um, and I say that jokingly, but it's kind of accurate. And so I need a lot of support, and and I don't want very established agents' habits because the philosophy of being of service, the philosophy of going above and beyond, the philosophy of, you know, well, can I just send it like this and we'll just add that other stuff later? No, we have to provide excellence and value every turn because that is demonstrating why they should choose to operate with us. It shouldn't even be a question. If we so that's sort of one thing I would say. And I think there's a natural mentoring, although people tell me I'm very intimidating, which I find very funny because if you really knew me, it's like I'm just a little kid. Um, but I guess it's really I've built my team purposefully today around the support that I need, but also looking for the right chemistry because we all have to have the same philosophy. I've always, I don't like to have one person work on this and one person work on that. I don't even want to have the energy to try to figure out who should be what. I do match personalities. I don't match the financial or the specialty. I match personalities because I do know my clients.
You use a personality test to do that as well, correct?
I do. I do. I mean, my husband is wicked smart, and people are always like, you and your husband work together. I was like, oh my God, he would just, I would drive him crazy because he is. I always describe us as like I'm the kite and he's my string. But he is very smart, and he is a tech entrepreneur and has built and sold a number of companies. And at some point, he started trying to figure out how to hire the right people in his own businesses. And, you know, he for the heck of it, he gave me this personality index. And it was created by the guy that was selecting the bomb, the person who drops the bomb. So it's a
Oh,
pilot and
sure.
the co-pilot. And so that's how it was created in the 40s, but it's morphed into this tool of determining personalities and what people are good for. Well, it's A, B, C, D personality traits. Well, I am so off of what's important on relationships. That's the B. It doesn't even mark. And not only that, my husband jokes, he's like, you care more about the relationships that are not nice and don't like you and you want to figure out why than the ones that are just right in front of you sometimes. Um, I just want to try to figure out what makes those people tick.
Sure.
Um, and so what I did come to realize that I had at one point a marketing guy who was also a real estate broker who came in from the advertising world. And he was desperately trying to be a broker and he presented well and he was amazing. But when he did the personality index, he was literally turning himself inside out.
Mm.
He was not at all being who his natural self was. And so, you know, I I know, I mean, now I have enough of the right people in the right seats that we literally can finish each other's sentences. And and by the way, when I piss somebody off, which I do because I'm a lot, the intent is, my intent. It's not that. It's just not having time. And so the trust that's built with those moments and lots of them, you have built your own dynamic of a family. I
Yeah.
also I want to say one more thing about compensation because I remember watching older agents have assistants and they kind of barked at like, get me coffee and make copies. And that's a typo. Do that over again. It's like it was not collaborative. And
Mm.
I really wanted to have something that was people I can't be everywhere. So I didn't want many me's. I just wanted people that complemented my many weaknesses but also the diversity of who's going to be attracted to who as we work together. And that is was a really good, I don't know if it was intentional, but it just sort of happened where I felt I feel filled the seats with people that complemented my weaknesses or you know yeah, I would say that. And so they don't think like me. They complement our strategy.
Yeah, I love that. And we should also mention too that if you are a realtor in the Manhattan market and maybe you are thinking of a switch or maybe just want to see what other opportunities are out there to see if there is better chemistry. Maybe you're not currently on a team and you think that you could provide some value to the team and maybe get some value as well. Or maybe you're somebody that's currently on a team and it's just maybe not the right fit. Of course, not all teams are. And so, if you think that you would like to partner with Louise and her team, obviously she does not take everyone. In fact, she doesn't take hardly anyone because she wants to find the right fit. But when she does find that, she embraces them and brings them on. She has a very successful team, nearly 6 billion in sales. So, Louise, if any of our listeners who are realtors in your area are interested in thinking that maybe they would be a good asset to you, what's the best way they should reach out?
You can DM me on Wheezy_says, or you can go to the website. Um, I don't know if you've got a chat log in your podcast, but no, I mean, I think those are two great spots.
Yeah, and also realize too that when you're reaching out to top producers like Wheezy, she's busy. She's a very busy person. So be patient. A lot of people listen to our show, and a lot of people will probably be messaging her. So please be patient there, and also think about. I always think if you're going to approach a top producer, think about what problems you can help solve for them, and if
Mm.
you can think about what what you can bring to the table as opposed to just what you might get, you'll probably get a lot further. And Louise and her team obviously are exceptional. They're legends in the New York market. So it is a very, very big deal. And please do reach out to her if you think you could be a good fit for her, and then her and her team will take a look. But also, I want everybody to follow Louise. Check out her website, it is
It's
Louise Phillips Forbes
louisephillipsforbes.com.
com, and then Louise Phillips Forbes team is where you find her on Instagram. We will also have a link to your Wheezy one as well. We will have a link to all your social profiles, but also just wanted to ask one final question. What was the biggest mistake that you think you've made in the 30, or a mistake that you sort of wish that you could go back and correct? Because I always like to humanize our guests a little bit too. So can you think of something that you
Hmm.
wish you would have done different in your career?
Hmm. Wow. There are so many things. What would I have done differently? I mean, I don't think I'm grateful that I don't live in regret, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because even if I've made mistakes, which there are pretty much every day, the ability to clean up your mistakes and own your part in it, I think is really valuable so you don't live in the negative.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of an example that just stands out. I mean, I've um,
Well,
yeah,
here's what
you
I love about
stumped me, by the way, just to be
here's what I
clear.
love about why you're stumped. I love this because you don't live in regret. You keep your side of the street clean when you make mistakes, as you say you do every day. You own them, you acknowledge them, you make amends if you need to, and you move on, and you don't hold on to it. So the fact that you're not holding on to it doesn't mean you didn't make mistakes. You
Yeah,
admitted as much, but that you don't have a list of these horrible atrocities that have been committed, which probably weren't horrible anyway. But the idea of letting go and moving
yeah.
forward is really
I,
awesome.
I will say one thing about, and I can think of one of the most difficult times I almost got out of real estate. So I had a couple of team members that worked with me, and I had a contract, but I am not a business minded individual. And I operate with such trust. And people, I remember I had somebody who sat next to me, and when I was younger, in the like 90s, early 2000s, and she was locking up her desk with all of her files, and I thought to myself, like, how odd is that? And so I never felt like you can't take my relationships.
Right.
But in fact, I had team members that worked for me for a decade and just shy of a decade. And we had such an intricate fiber of how we operated, that, I knew exactly where if I'm selling an apartment to somebody that my kids go to preschool with, and I'm kind of clear where that relationship came from. But I had a couple of agents that left and went to another firm, and they left very strategically, on time, at, planning probably 3 to 4 months in advance, and targeted my business for 5 years, still today.
Ugh.
And I was so devastated emotionally that
Sure.
I just didn't understand that betrayal, that it took me 3 years to thaw out, trust unconditionally. However, I got my ducks in a row. So so if you're building a team, even if it's your best friend, have a good contract. Don't be short-sighted. And also, if you're going to have employees like operations, drivers, marketing people, have a third party contractor, hire them, have them on a payroll, pay 20 whatever percent more for their salary. Protect yourself, because I've had people fall and be disabled, and or go on disability, and I would never have known how to manage that.
Sure.
So it's a big thing that people who build teams are not addressing. and it's
Yeah.
going to bite them in the rear end.
100% agree. So if you are joining a team, make sure that that team seems to have their HR in order and some sort of operations in order so that, you can,
Compensation clear,
yes.
contract terms, everything, because you're in the business and you need to take care of yourself. Sorry about my phone.
No, it's perfect timing because I got getting a call as well. So this is perfect time for us to wrap up. You have provided so much value to our audience. So on behalf of everyone listening, we thank you, Louise, for your time today. You
Thank
are a
you.
superstar, obviously, in the New York market, and we're so honored to get some of your time today because we know how valuable that is for somebody as busy as yourself. So on behalf of the audience, thank you. And on behalf of Louise and I, we want to thank the audience as well for sticking around to the very end. Please tell a friend about this episode. Please leave us a review. Let us know what you think of the show. But the best thing to do for sure is just keep spreading the word. Let other agents know that this podcast exists. And we have grown to, we just crossed over 3.2 million downloads thanks to you guys,
Woo!
not thanks to me. So I thank you on behalf of our entire crew here. And Louise, thank you again. We will see everybody on the next
I'll
episode. Thanks,
I'll
Louise.
see you in New York soon.
I will be there, and I will go to Katz's or something. We'll have fun.
I love it.
All right.
Ciao.
See you later. Bye bye.